India's automobile industry stands at a very interesting juncture. There is so much talk about the resurgence and, of course, sales coming back quite smartly, in many ways better than expected. And then within that, the shining star remains the SUV space, no doubt. That is something that we have seen now for several quarters. In fact, I should say years. And the one name that always comes up when you say SUV is always Mahindra. A new product from Mahindra is always something that gets everybody excited because, well, we are talking always about potentially huge volumes and a lot of interest from a wide variety of buyer segments. The latest product is the Bolero Neo. That and plenty more that I'd like to speak about with Veejay Nakra. He's joining me right now. Hi there, Vijay. It's good to see you.
Hi, Siddharth. Thank you so much for having me on your show again.
It's
Always a pleasure to interact with you.
No, the pleasure is all mine, and I have to say that this one we're doing this one today after a long time, so I'm really
That's right.
especially pleased. New product is always a great thing because you can see I'm already smiling. It gets the smile on everybody's faces. But the Bolero brand, I mean, what a powerhouse that's been, and not just for Mahindra. I mean, it's a auto industry powerhouse. So it gets a lot of attention straight away. The minute you say Bolero anything, it gets a lot of attention. Uh, tell me about the product.
Sure. Siddharth, firstly, I think you introduced the brand very appropriately. And if I may just talk a little bit about Bolero, because I think that brand deserves a little bit of consideration in terms of talking more about the brand. So I think, Siddharth, you've been following the auto industry or part of the auto industry, following the Mahindra brand for so many years. And Bolero has had a fantastic 20-year run. We actually complete 20 years as we get into the launch of Bolero Neo. And what I'm what I'm very happy to see is that it's a brand that is synonymous with India, with Bharat, with SUV as a category. Even it actually is the highest selling SUV in the country. We've sold close to 1.3 million Boleros, happy customers. It continues to be in the top 10 selling SUVs in the country. And it's had a phenomenal run and journey over the 20 years in terms of the various avatars, refreshes, facelifts. And at the end of this 20-year journey, we are getting ready for the future in the next many more years for this brand, which is where we launched Bolero Neo. And with the launch of Bolero Neo, we will have Bolero as a portfolio for the SUV, where the current Bolero SUV will continue, and we introduce Bolero Neo. So that's a little bit in terms of how Bolero as a brand, what it is, and how this portfolio will play out going forward.
It's interesting you said that because globally we have seen a lot of companies which are essentially SUV makers starting to focus on this sort of different product or model lines, like families of products, not just one car, but using a sort of an umbrella brand strategy. We have seen that starting to happen at Mahindra some time back. It's not something new necessarily with XUV, the Thar, of course, now coming back very strongly with the all new car last year, and you got Scorpio and Bolero. So each of these brands is like a is a very strong space for you. Is that correct? That interpretation in that sense?
Yes, Siddharth, absolutely. We are in the business of SUVs, as we say. We want to be an authentic SUV manufacturer with a very strong affinity when it comes to a brand that makes SUVs. And to do that, what we've done is, as you rightly said, Bolero, Scorpio, XUV as a family, and Thar. These are what we would say would be the focus in terms of portfolio, brand portfolio, our communication, which will help us to build the brand affinity that we're talking about as a differentiated SUV player in, as you rightly said, the fastest growing segment category. You could say not only in India but even globally.
Okay, so the question I know that has to be asked, I should be asking this later because I actually want to get to the Neo, but I'll quickly get it out of the way if I can, which
Sure.
is on a lot of people's minds. Where does that leave the TUV or the KUV family?
Um, on the KUV family, Siddharth, We are very happy to see how it's doing in the international markets. So KUV does continue to be a product in our portfolio. Not only that, I will also talk about another brand which is the Marazzo, because I know there are a lot of questions that have been raised around the KUV and the future of KUV Marazzo. On KUV, it continues. We do well in the export markets. We export it to not only the neighboring countries, but to South Africa, parts of Europe, Chile, so parts of Africa, Northern Africa. So it's a well accepted product and brand in many international markets.
And you're on
When,
record talking about the electrification of that family as well.
absolutely.
Yeah.
So we will have the EKUV, which is what we're looking at for India. So KUV as a product. Of course, electrification changes the platform to that extent
Yeah.
because your powertrain totally changes. What I was talking about was the diesel and the gasoline version that we have, the ICE version of KUV. On Marazzo, that also we are continuing that as a product, and in fact, if anything, we are launching a auto shift version on Marazzo. So that again is a product that will continue. We are not stopping that brand. On the TUV, that specific question that you asked, so that the whole purpose of creating the Bolero Neo was to take the strength of what we had in the TUV, and we can talk a little bit about what was the genesis of the Bolero Neo and what the product is. The idea was to take the strengths of what Bolero Neo is and add to that the Bolero ness to complete that product and help add that to the portfolio of Bolero as a brand.
All right, so let's talk more about the car itself now. So it obviously builds on what you've already been able to achieve to a certain extent, because what the TUV did do was to be able to be sort of a bridge between your Bolero customer and perhaps your Scorpio customer in some ways, at least the way I see it. The fact that you can target a similar customer today who is obviously more demanding, who wants something that's more modern, who wants something that is increasingly going to always be a more forward-looking product. Does the Neo sort of deliver all of that, according to you?
Absolutely, absolutely, and we'll talk about that. I just wanted to say that let's understand what people loved about the TV. What people, and Siddharth, you know that there are fan clubs of that brand today. Okay, people have loved that product, the TUV, and it's largely what they liked about it is it's a compact, authentic, frame-based rear-wheel drive SUV, punchy, performs well, can go anywhere. But there were certain aspects about the design of the vehicle, what I would say the approachability of the vehicle, because TUV had a very menacing appeal, design, look. And as we spoke to customers, as we tried to understand, we'll talk about who this new customer is, what is the profile of that customer. They loved it from a product, platform, engineering, fit, finish point of view. What they wanted was that the product felt a little too tall in terms of drive. It needed to be a little bit more planted, ingress, egress, ride height. So some of these things, including the look of the vehicle to make it a little bit more authentic, iconic in terms of its design. That's where we believe that the Bolero-ness that we bring onto what the TUV had, which was all these strengths that I spoke about, is what helps Bolero Neo to cater to that newer, younger, modern age customer of India. And then that's what we did in terms of the product. While we took those strengths of the TUV, the Bolero ness that we brought in, what we did is we reduced first the height of the vehicle. Then we went back to the customers to get their inputs again. So there's been a lot of iterative with the consumer insighting of two kinds of customers. One is the classical Bolero customer who would look at the vehicle and say, when I want to move on but remain in the Bolero family, will the product appeal to me or not? When we went back and spoke to them and we took them input from that base of customers, and we also went to the customers who at some point took a decision that Bolero is not for me anymore, and I would want to move on to a more modern product. The commonality that came from them is what led to the creation of Neo. And that's where I'm coming back to the Bolero Nest, which is drop the height, drop the bonnet so you get a better visibility, bring in the strength of what Bolero was, which is the flat bonnet, a hooded look to the headlamps, change the grille to your vertical, narrower grille, get the hooded headlamps. All those inputs went into bringing the Bolero Nest, the cladding on the side of the vehicle,
Hmm.
the rectangular wheel arches. All of this was not a part of it. The change in the DLO of the vehicle in terms of the appearance of making the D pillar a lot more solid compared to what it looked like in the TUV where we had blacked it out.
Yeah.
So we made a lot of these changes to bring the Bolero Nest, and that combination of the classic 3G platform, which goes into Scorpio, which goes into Thar, which went into the TUV, with the Mahindra well-respected, well-known M-Hawk engine. It's the three-cylinder, 100 horsepower engine, delivering 260 Newton meter of torque. That's another thing that these customers wanted. So we've been able to keep that combination, bring the Bolero Nest in, and hence that was the genesis of creating Bolero.
So, is it fair to say that this is a sort of more urban or a more sophisticated Bolero for a more upwardly mobile buyer? Is that fair?
That would be a fair way of saying it. I just wanted to put a little bit out on the profile also of the customer who, and we put some teasers out there, Siddharth,
Yes, you
on the
have.
Bolero, we call these two characters who denote the modern youth of
Yeah.
Bharat in India. We call them Arav and Naina. And if you see who they are people, not just the male profile, but even the young, the women of Bharat, what I call Bharat, which is not necessarily the Mumbai, Delhi, Bangalore, but as we all know, India is Bharat. So when you look at that, they are about people who are now looking at becoming fearless in terms of expressing what they want. There is a certain swag in the way they communicate. They're not hesitant about putting out their point of view. Siddharth, you will know many of these people have got such strong fan following that a million views on their YouTube channels these days are pretty common. So they are expressive, they have a strong point of view, they have a purpose in life, they want to make a statement in society, both male and female. And we want to target this new age consumer with the Bolero Neo. Also, I just wanted to say, Siddharth, many of these customers who come from the hinterland, the heart of India, what we call Bharat, whether it's northern, southern, central, western, eastern India, any of the states you talk about, they are wanting to do something different. They are wanting to stand out in society, and many of them, while they may leave the roots where they come from, and we know that from their aspiration point of view, they may migrate to more urban cities, or many of them are creating new ecosystems of startups even in smaller towns in India. Whatever they do, somewhere within them, their ethos and their value system still remains with them. And I think Bolero fits in beautifully with that, because 1.3 million customers, a couple of very large families, households, Bharat, they all know what Bolero as a brand is. So there is they recognize the brand, they understand the strength of the brand, and now by bringing this modernity in terms of platform and design, it will appeal to this segment, which I think is a very, very, very large opportunity.
So you've led me straight into many things that I want to ask you. At your own peril, this is
I'm happy to answer your questions.
So the first obvious thing is that when you mentioned that this is a very confident young, very sure kind of a buyer who knows what they want, they're also very demanding. So when it comes to technology or when it comes to interface, how do you address that requirement for this modern Indian?
So, the other good part, Siddharth, is one of the things that people loved about the TUV was its interiors. It is
I was
designed
one
by
of them.
Pininfarina.
Yeah.
Thank you so much. Thank you so much. So it was designed by Pininfarina in Italy. It's got sophisticated, very good fit and finish.
Mm.
We've got now the infotainment system, so it takes care of the needs of technology, takes care of the need of uh, good, high quality finish, sophisticated interiors, and it's always been comfortable and spacious. So, in terms of the package, it's not just about raw power, it's not just about design, it's also about the. So, while the consumer wants the tough iconic design, they also want cool and trendy.
Yeah.
So I think the Bolero Neo is a nice combination of iconic, authentic, and cool and trendy.
So connectivity and things like that, this is all taking it into
Absolutely.
consideration.
Absolutely.
The other thing which it sort of led me to is when you look at this product, or you look at the buyer for this product, they also start to have subsequent needs that prop up. Somebody's going to want an automatic. Somebody is going to. I'm assuming you're starting with, of course, just the 4 meter sub 4 meter car, but you'll eventually have the other variant, which is when you have a family and you start needing the extra space. So that is the direction you'll go in with the Neo.
So that I'm not going to comment too much on that, but yes, at least Neo for now. While we've launched the sub 4 meter, there is also the Neo Plus, which will be a longer one. That's also definitely on the cards in the immediate future. And yes, that we will be launching soon.
And automatic as an area, do you think do you think the tier two market has that increasing demand now? I'm assuming that's where a large volume for the Neo would come from.
Yeah, so Siddharth, I think that's where we believe that every product in the portfolio has a role to play. That's one, and two, we still, again, we keep having this discussion of gasoline, automatic, and diesel manual.
Yeah.
Um, our observation is that clearly in the crossovers sub 4 meter, the the vote goes to gasoline automatic. When you come to mid-size crossovers, it's a fair mix between diesel, gasoline, manual, and automatic. And when you move to authentic chassis-based, frame-based SUVs, largely the call of the day is still around diesel. So we've stayed with diesel for now on this platform. And yes, strategies around the powertrain we will evolve as we go along, given that Bolero is a portfolio and a product that's very, very critical and important to our overall SUV strategy.
So actually, speaking of the overall strategy, and I don't want to pin you down on a Bolero specific question, this whole talk about petrol, I mean, I know a lot of it is sometimes media generated. Sometimes it's sort of motivated. Let me also say that. But this where do you stand on this question of petrol versus diesel when it comes to specifically SUVs? I mean, you have the Japanese and the Europeans who've gone petrol only. You have the Koreans who still believe that diesel is the way to go, and in fact, they still keep saying that diesel dominates their sales. Uh, how do you react to firstly what's happening with that in the market? Because a lot of that is not controlled by the consumer, and then of course within Mahindra.
Yeah, so Siddharth, I think it's fluid at the moment, and I think this is
Yeah.
going to evolve because, to be honest, there are multiple things that will play out. Don't forget that we are going to be getting to cafe. When we get to cafe, it's going to be a corporate fuel average, right? So different manufacturers will have their own strategies of meeting the cafe requirement between a mix of diesel, gasoline, and electric, and maybe hybrid. So one just needs to see how this plays out. So I think it's a little early to commit to something. We've kept our options open for now. As you know, we've gone on record with our plans for electric, but that's not the topic for today. We'll talk about that at probably a later point in time. But coming back to ICE, as far as ICE is concerned, we've got the M Hawk, which is a very well proven diesel powertrain, and we've got the M Stallion, which is the gasoline, which now has proven itself, whether it is the XUV 300, whether it's the Thar, and of course, going forward with the new products that we launch, we've got big plans for M Stallion as our gasoline offering. So we are clear that we've got, and just to, again, it's on record, but I just want to repeat it, that it is the most modern technology of gasoline engines in India.
Mm.
It, I mean, the TGDI technology that we bring on our M Stallion engines are state of the art. And that's why we would like to give both the offerings to our customers going forward. We know that those people who want the punch to drive, they go for diesel. And those who are not looking necessarily for the thrill of drive typically have gone in with the naturally aspirated gasoline engine. It's more about economics, etc., etc. But what we've done is with the TGA technology,
It's both.
we've been able to provide that low end torque and the thrill of driving a gasoline engine. So we'll leave the option to the customer to decide what best works for them. We are ready on both fronts from our side.
All right, that's fair, and I can of course vouch for the part about all that torque because it makes for a lot of fun driving for sure. And I'm very pleased that you have invested in a very modern engine. But that's
Yes,
this is not about me, so I will quickly come back to the Bolero. The other question, of course, remains about the current Bolero and the Neo. How will the two coexist, not just in the showroom but on the road?
both have an important role to play in the portfolio because I think there are still the consumers who would prefer the classic Bolero. I call it the classic Bolero, which is the original Bolero. And it's like the original 501 jeans, right? Button fly, you can't change that.
Yeah.
So I think the current Bolero, the classic Bolero, has its place in the portfolio. There will be a very large base, especially in markets like UP, Bihar, MP, parts of Rajasthan, which we believe will continue to be strong proponents of the current Bolero. Also, a very large portion of institutional sales happen
Yeah.
on Bolero as a brand, and I think that too will continue with the classic Bolero, and the Bolero Neo will appeal to the new age customer who wants to stay in the Bolero family but wants to migrate to something more while, as I said, iconic and authentic at the same time, more cool and trendy. And those customers who were moving out of the Bolero portfolio to some of the other SUV brands, we believe we'll be able to retain them now with the Bolero Neo.
But but Vijay,
So
I have
both equally important,
go ahead.
and both will have a strong role to play.
Fair enough. What about a 4x4 requirement? Do you see that at all, or is that something then that shifts to something a different product in your portfolio?
You know, so that, of course, you always play the game at a portfolio level. I mean, you create your range at the portfolio level. So Scorpio has that, Scorpio will have it, it has that role to play. Um, what we've done with the launch of the Bolero Neo is we've brought in what we call multi-terrain technology, which is, while it's not a full 4x4, it's the limited slip differential technology that we've brought in, which limits the slip of the wheel. I mean, we all know what the technology of a limited slip differential is. So it's not a full 4x4, but it definitely does the job. And given the power torque that the engine has, along with the MTT technology that we are bringing in, I think that will do the job for the segment that it's required. And again, the Bolero Neo customer is not necessarily looking at very hard degree of off-roading where you will need that kind of four-wheel drive. So this will do the technology and it will do the job. It can even go into rough terrains and it will suffice. The torque and the slip on the differential will suffice.
And I'm guessing that from a tier 2 or 3 strategy perspective, a customer who still wants that sort of a more rugged product will still have the Thar. I'm guessing that's where you will direct them.
Absolutely. So there's Thar, there is Scorpio, and then there is Bolero. You've got all three on a frame-based rear-wheel drive technology options for the customer.
And then, of course, there's the whole conversation about a 5-door Thar, but I won't do that to you today. So much talk about that.
I'm not going to put my foot in my
Nah,
mouth, but
I'm not going to
as
force you
as
to
we
do that.
spoke about, right? Each brand is like a portfolio on its own, and
Yeah.
its rightful place. We want each one of them to become volume drivers. That's how we will meet the aspiration of a differentiated, authentic SUV player. And so we have our strategies in place for that.
No, but I have to say, Vijay, I can joke about stuff like that, but the immense sort of feedback and the sort of clamor for such a vehicle that comes from the market to you. You mentioned that you have used so many customer inputs or potential customer inputs, even in the Neo. Has that, you've always been a company that did that, but would you say post Thar that has, in a sense, changed for you? Or is that unfair?
I think that would be a little unfair, but I think, let me put it this way. We've always had the customer at the center with whatever we did. What we've done a little differently this time is, while the customer does remain in the center, we are trying to look at collaborative ways and looking at how we can leverage technology in a manner that we can better fulfill that requirement. And I think that it wouldn't be fair to say that it happened with the launch of Thar,
Yeah.
but I would say with the launch after the previous generation, because the Thar, the 700 and the new Scorpio, as you know, these are all 3-year product cycles. So we would have, as you said, we've been probably listening to the customer better, maybe in the last 3 to 4 years, which is allowing us to put these kind of products now into the market, which is helping us deliver our objective.
Yeah, and of course, that's a whole different kind of buzz around the 700 and the new Scorpio. I know we are getting closer to those. So, again, all in good time. The last point about safety. As a brand, you have really, really sort of occupied that space. Also in the consumer's mind space, I have to say. I mean, we definitely get that feedback. The respect that Mahindra has now around safety is amazing. On the Neo, what can we expect on the safety front?
So we've not, and as you know, Siddharth, G and cap happens only after you productionize the vehicle, you launch it, you put it in the market. But I just want all the consumers to know that Bolero Neo will meet all the safety standard regulations of airbag, ABS, cornering braking, CBC, ISOFIX seat for children. It's got everything.
Yeah.
But I think that's an important point you mentioned, Siddharth, because again, when you look at the consumer, besides a global G and cap rating, there is something about the Bolero and the Neo, right, which is the inherent toughness of the vehicle. And this reminds me, I don't know whether you saw this video that had gone viral and it came to me from multiple sources. There was this mountain ghat on which there was a Bolero that was parked, and there was a JCB earth moving. I don't remember the name, but there was an earth moving equipment that was coming down the ghat. And it was on a turn. The Bolero was parked here, there was a drop. There was a steep drop. And here comes the earth moving equipment and it bangs the Bolero coming down the ghat. And the Bolero did not move. It just skidded a bit and it stopped. So there is a certain sheer degree of metal strength and toughness that a Bolero has. That's been the DNA of what Bolero has been. And that's clearly something that you will see again in the Bolero. So the reinforcements, the thicker doors, all of that has been brought into the Bolero Neo so that we are going to be able to deliver on what I call the Bolero-ness in this product. And so besides the normal safety regulatory requirements, and as I mentioned, airbags and ABS with EBD, this is another thing that comes in the Bolero.
No, and I know you always go beyond what is just a regulatory requirement as a brand, as a company. And the good part is that, the assumption has been shattered now for some years about which buyer really cares about that. I think every buyer does care about it. And certainly the Aravs and Nainas of the world certainly do. I think they're a lot more clued into all of this now. So kudos to you for doing that. So last question about the plan. It's coming at a right time in terms of being well ahead of the festive season, also at a time where the market is sort of showing a lot of resurgence. Your immediate short-term outlook then for what's going to happen, considering your supply constraints remain?
So you're talking about outlook in general, Siddharth?
In general, yeah. I think, of course, the Neo will feed into that, no doubt. But as a brand, what's your focus in the next 3-4 months?
Yeah, so I think everyone's focus right now is on supply chain. And let me further shortlist within supply chain. I think it's the semiconductors. That's where everyone's focus is. It is a global situation. It's a global shortage. And if I recollect reading right one of the reports in terms of the consumption of semiconductors, automobile figures number 4 or 5 as an industry globally.
Yeah.
So, you've got mobiles, IT, consumer durables. There are other industries that come before automobile. So if you ask me, it's a little fluid. It wouldn't be fair to say that we've got that under control, and I don't think any manufacturer can. It is fluid. I think everybody is doing what best they can from our supply chain to de-risk that part of the strategy. So if we are able to manage that, that's one. Second, I don't think you can say that I've got it sorted for a long period. You need to manage this from a quarter to quarter. While you do set up a long-term supply chain and a sourcing strategy to de-risk semiconductors, but I think at the moment, to me, that's the biggest challenge for the automobile industry, India and globally. As long as we are able to manage that part well, all other supply chain issues are largely behind. Demand is buoyant. We are seeing phenomenal response and bookings continue on Thar, the XUV 300, Scorpio, Bolero, a lot of early good response on Bolero Neo. So a lot of action happening there, and yes, getting ready for our next few launches after that. So I believe that the SUV and the personal vehicle space is back after the second wave of COVID. Small commercial vehicles, I think we probably still do need a couple of months till the customers actually come out and buy vehicles. Financiers have confidence to finance these customers. But I think by the time we get to the festive season, the industry will be back stronger than what it was even last year.
Okay. The only last little sort of caveat to that would be that, it's a fact that you could probably sell a lot more vehicles if you had that supply chain issue sorted out. And as you mentioned, no one really knows, when it will really get truly sorted out. How difficult is it then to plan these massive products? I mean, the ones you have coming up are really, really high decibel launches.
Yeah, I think that's what we're doing everything to make sure that there's nothing that spoils that plan.
I know it's tougher it's easier said than done. I know there's a lot of layers to that. I respect that. Good luck with the rollout of the Bolero Neo, Veejay. I don't think you really need it because that brand is very, very powerful for you. That said, I think it'll be very interesting to see how the customers react to this new model line, especially those who have, long been Bolero fans. So I will knock your door a few months down the line to get that data from you or that feedback from the market.
I'd love to share that with you, and I'm confident that we'll have some good data and good news to share with you.
I'm sure you will, and all the very best to you and the teams that have been working very hard. Please stay safe, and thank you for your time today.
Thank you, Siddharth. Pleasure to be on your show. Thank you to all your viewers for watching this show, and stay safe and connect soon.
Thank you.